Craig had worked himself up into a tizzy. I am Joseph. This is Input English. So what's a tizzy? Craig is very anxious, very worked up, agitated, irritated, worried. A tizzy is an expression in American English that dates back to the 30s to describe someone who is very anxious or very worked up. So why is Craig upset? Well, he feels that he is going to be left out. He's going to miss out on something, and he doesn't like that at all. To make things worse, he feels that he had a hand in it. He's going to miss out because of his own choice. This has been brewing for a couple of days, and Craig just can't stand it. So he decided to talk to his dad about this. Both of Craig's parents are very willing to help him solve problems, but for something like this, he just feels that he wants to talk to his dad about it. He feels that he needs a man-to-man discussion with his dad. Craig's 11. So he found his dad in the living room, in his chair, reading a book. He stood in front of his dad and waited for his father to look up, which of course he did. After eye contact was made, Craig asked politely if he could talk to his dad about a problem he was having. Robert said, "Sure, son, have a seat," and offered him a chair. Craig sat down and started to explain what he was worried about. He started by saying, "I think I made a mistake. Last year, I should have signed up for band, but now I'm halfway through 6th grade. The kids who signed up for band can already play their instruments, and I really should have signed up. I just didn't think about it at the time." Robert listened carefully and then asked, "Why the change? What's different now so that I can understand what you're talking about?" Craig said, "Well, it's a couple of things. I met Charlotte, and she's playing the French horn in the junior band. She's been playing for several years now. And I've been talking to some of the kids in my class who are taking band, and they're really enjoying it." Robert said, "It sounds like you have a pretty good reason to want to be in the band. You seem to really want it." Craig said, "Yes." Then Robert speculated about Charlotte. He looked at Craig and said, "You're pretty fond of Charlotte, aren't you?" Craig blushed. He didn't say anything for a moment, and then he said in a very meek voice, "Yes." Robert caught on that and said, "There's nothing to be ashamed about that. Charlotte is a nice girl, and she's very interesting. There's nothing to be ashamed about." Then he came back to the matter at hand and said, "Well, how can I help you? What would you like to do?" Craig said, "Well, I'd like to be in the band, but I don't have any idea how I could catch up. I'm not in the band. I'm looking at it from outside. With each passing week, those kids get further and further away from me. So I don't see a way that I can solve this problem." Robert added his perspective, pointing out that this is really not a very big problem. So he continued, "We've established you want to be in the band. What instrument do you want to play?" Without hesitation, Craig said, "Saxophone." Robert playfully said, "Not French horn?" And again, Craig blushed and said, No, that would be weird." Robert came back to the main topic. "Okay, saxophone it is. But Craig, there are about 8 different kinds of saxophones, and in middle school, they play 2 or 3 of those. Have you decided whether you want to play an alto sax or a tenor or maybe even a baritone? Do you have any feelings about which sort of saxophone you want to play? Craig instantly said tenor. He did not hesitate. Next, Robert said, the band director at your school is Mr. Forrest, am I right? Craig said, yes. How did you know that? Robert said, he's an old friend of mine. We go way back. Here's the plan, Craig. I'm going to call Mr. Forrest and get his advice, because this certainly has come up before. This is not the first time in the history of the world that a kid decided that they wanted to join the band about 6 months after the other kids did. I'm sure he'll be able to help us. Next, you're going to want to listen to some saxophone music. Do you have any saxophone music on your iPad? Craig said no. He told Craig to go get his iPad and bring it to him because Robert was going to use his own account to download some music so that Craig can start listening to well-played tenor saxophone music and get a feel for what that horn sounds like. When Craig came back and handed his iPad to his dad, his father, Robert, said, now you know I played saxophone in school. Craig said, yes, I do know that. Robert said, I played alto, but your choice of a tenor is great. He downloaded an old recording by Stan Getz and Charlie Bird called Jazz Samba. When he finished setting up the download, he handed the tablet back to Craig and suggested that he go up to his room and give it a listen. He explained that Jazz Samba is an early version of bossa nova that is a blend of American jazz and music from Brazil. He explained that he was going to try to get a phone call through to Mr. Forrest and get some advice. He wasn't sure he could get through to him tonight, but he thinks he has his number or can find it. Craig was happy with this and went upstairs to listen to his new recording of Stan Getz. Craig had never heard of Stan Getz. Within minutes, Robert was on the phone talking to Mr. Forrest, and he explained the problem to him. Mr. Forrest pointed out that this was not a big deal, but it would mean that Craig would have to put more effort in to catch up. He said this happens from time to time, and it usually works out fine. What Mr. Forrest recommended is that they go down to the music store on Saturday and either rent or purchase a tenor saxophone so that he has something to play. And then he recommended that Craig take private lessons at the music store. And he told Robert that there is a good teacher who can get Craig started very well on tenor saxophone. He'll need a book and he'll need regular lessons. And of course, he's going to need to practice every day. With that kind of effort and daily practice, he can easily catch up to the other students because in junior high school, that is middle school, students frequently don't practice very much. And so catching up with them is usually not very difficult. On Saturday, Craig and his dad, Robert, went to the music store and talked to the salespeople about how they could get a hold of a good saxophone. The store had a lot of options. They had very expensive professional models, they had some intermediate models, and they had some student horns. The salesman was very thoughtful and said, you know, I have a used Yamaha YTS 23 that I can bring out. It has a couple of scratches on it, but it's almost new. Our technician has serviced it so it plays like new, and it will serve you well. A horn like that could easily take Craig through his entire high school career playing saxophone. If he gets really good, he may want to move up to a more advanced model, but realistically, this would be a great place to start, and it costs a lot less than some of these new models. This sounded pretty good to Robert, and Craig didn't know any different, so the salesman brought out this used saxophone, and they all looked at it. Craig thought it was new. He didn't see a scratch on it. It had obviously been well cared for. So the purchase was made, and Craig went home with his new Yamaha saxophone. That is, new to him. He also noticed that in the case, this horn was a lot heavier than he expected. While they were at the store, they made an appointment for Craig to get his first lesson. And the salesman recommended that Craig not try to assemble or play the instrument until he's had his first lesson. He looked at Craig and said, "You don't want to break it." As they were going home, Craig was thinking how fantastic it was that he went to his dad with a problem, and as usual, his dad was super helpful and basically fixed the problem. Craig was very excited about starting in the band, knowing that he would start in the fall. And he really wanted to make sure that when he started, he would not be behind. He wanted to be even with the other kids. So he was planning on practicing every day. As they were riding home, Craig was thinking, should I tell anybody at school or should I keep this a secret? He was thinking it would be hard to keep this secret because he's going to be so excited about it. But it might be more fun to surprise everybody and show up at the beginning of next year in 7th grade already knowing how to play the saxophone. For now, this is going to be a secret. For me, this story was not about the saxophone. No. This story came from a sensation that I had when I was about 6 years old and I had been left behind. My mom and sister had gone to the store and I had wanted to go with them, but I dragged my feet and so they got in the car and left. Now, I wasn't the only one in the household. I wasn't left alone, but I missed my opportunity to do something I wanted to do because I was dragging my feet. I didn't do what I was supposed to do to go with them. I still remember that sensation. And I also remember many times when I had a big problem, when I'd worked myself up into a tizzy, a lot of anxiety, and then I took it to one of my parents, and the problem was very quickly resolved. So really, this story is about human nature. And if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.